We're told marrying young is a mistake. We're told if you commit in your early 20s, you're setting yourself up for divorce. And statistically, early marriages do end more often. But statistics don't explain why. Is 23 too young? Or is instability the real risk factor? Today we're testing one question. Does marrying before 25 increase divorce risk? Or is age just a proxy? When you zoom out and look at national data, one pattern keeps showing up. The younger people are, when they get married, the more likely they are to get divorced. Data from the National Survey of Family Growth shows that people who marry in their teens or very early 20s divorce at noticeably higher rates than people who marry later. The National Center for Family and Marriage Research finds the same thing. Marriages that start before age 20 break up more often, especially within the first 10 years. When researchers break it down by age, the pattern is pretty clear. Through the early and mid-20s, each extra year you wait lowers the odds of divorce, at least up to a certain point. Census data shows something similar. People who marry at 22 or 23 divorce more often than those who marry in their late 20s. But the drop in risk doesn't continue forever. The lowest divorce rates tend to show up among people who marry in their late 20s or early 30s. And after that, the numbers flatten out or tick up slightly. So if we're just looking at the numbers, the pattern is straightforward. Marrying before the 25 comes with higher divorce rates than marrying later. But here's the key thing. These numbers show that age and divorce move together. They don't tell us that age is the reason. And that's where things get more interesting, because statistics are very good at showing patterns, but they don't automatically explain why those patterns exist. Once an idea sounds simple enough to fit on a bumper sticker, we usually stop asking questions. So the real question isn't just what the data shows, it's what might actually be driving it underneath. When people hear that marrying before 25 is linked to higher divorce rates, the reaction is almost automatic. Of course it is. At 22, most people are still changing. Careers are uncertain, income is unstable, identity is still forming. Who you are at 21 often isn't who you are at 28. So the common explanation feels straightforward. Young people grow apart. The idea is that early 20s are a period of transition, shifting ambitions, evolving beliefs, new environments. And if two people commit during that instability, the marriage absorbs that turbulence. There's also an implicit rule many people adopt. Wait longer, divorce less. Marry at 30 instead of 22, and you're assumed to be more settled, more financially secure, more emotionally mature, more certain about your partner. In this framing, age itself becomes the protective factor. The older you are, the safer the marriage. And because that explanation feels intuitive, most people stop questioning it. But intuitive explanations aren't always complete. It's the sort of logic that wins arguments in under 30 seconds. But here's where it gets interesting. Age doesn't show up alone. It usually comes with other things. Think about it. If someone gets married at 22, what else is likely true? They're less likely to have finished higher education. They're more likely to be earlier in their career. They're more likely to be earning less money. And those things matter. The National Center for Family and Marriage Research shows that people with less education divorce at higher rates than people with a college degree. And education affects when people get married in the first place. On average, the more education someone has, the later they marry. So now we've got overlap. Younger marriage often comes with lower income and more financial stress. And financial stress keeps showing up as one of the biggest reasons marriages struggle or break down. Here's the key shift. When researchers compare people who have similar income and similar education levels, the age gap in divorce shrinks a lot. In other words, once you level the playing field, age doesn't look nearly as powerful. So maybe the real issue isn't the number 22 versus 30. Maybe it's whether someone is financially stable or not. Because if instability is doing most of the damage, then age might just be along for the ride. And blaming age alone would be like blaming your birthday for your credit score. Financial instability is one part of the story. But there's another layer. Your early 20s are a time of real change. Studies that follow people over time show that personality is still developing in the early and mid-20s. Emotional control and long-term decision-making usually become more stable closer to the late 20s. That doesn't mean someone at 23 can't commit. It just means life is still moving. You're figuring out your career. You might be moving cities. You're still learning how taxes work. Your values can shift. Your social circle changes. Psychologists call this stage emerging adulthood. It's a period of exploration. Work, relationships, beliefs, direction. Exploration is healthy, but exploration and permanence don't always move at the same speed. If two people are both still figuring themselves out, there's a higher chance they grow in different directions. That doesn't prove youth causes divorce. It just shows that youth often comes with transition, and transition can put pressure on long-term commitments. So we're back to the real question. Is youth the problem? Or is it the instability that often comes with it? Does marrying before 25 increase your risk of divorce? If you just look at the numbers, yes. People who marry in their early 20s do divorce more often than people who marry later. But that doesn't mean age is the reason. When researchers factor in income and education, the gap gets smaller. And when you think about how much life shifts in your early 20s, new jobs, unstable money, changing goals, figuring yourself out, the story gets more complicated. Maybe it's not youth itself that increases the risk. Maybe it's instability, financial pressure, constant change, unclear direction. So maybe the better question isn't, is 23 too young? Maybe the better question is, how stable is your life when you decide to get married? Because age is just a number on a timeline. Stability is what determines whether two timelines can actually move together.